Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. This is VSiN Training Camp Today with host Kelley Bydlon, Nick Whalen, and Jeff Erickson.
Welcome in. It is VSiN's Training Camp Today. Let's go. A week jammed full of football here on the network as we do VSiN Training Camp Week all over the network. You'll see it on all shows that we are playing on VSiN throughout the week here. But on this show, Training Camp Today, in place of a numbers game taking a little bit of a vacation for 2 weeks. So if you are a regular numbers game listener, sorry, Gil's on a beach somewhere. We're talking all football for the next 2 hours and the next 5 days. That is all we are going to be doing on this show. We'll be talking NFL. We will be talking college football. We will be talking fantasy. All the futures betting markets that you could possibly think of, we will be hitting on, going in-depth on division dives. And I've got two excellent co-hosts that I will introduce soon to help me out throughout the entire process over the next few days. First, coming up on the show today, this is what we're going to hit right off the bat. We're going to start with a little bit of a macro approach today, get a little bit more into specifics as the week goes on. So next segment, AFC and NFC conference odds as well as Super Bowl odds. We will discuss who is kind of being slept on, who do we think is a little overrated, are there bets to be made right now or not? 10:30 Eastern Time, NFL awards betting. How to bet awards. What should we be looking at now during the summertime to get in on? We'll talk MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. 10:45, our fantasy football rankings. Can't wait for this with two of the sharper fantasy football minds out there. 11 a.m., we'll talk some college football futures. And then the great Adam Burke joins the show at 11:15 to talk about some of the highlights from the VSiN NFL betting guide. And if you don't have the betting guide, go get it now. You get it right now. You get betting guides for every other sport that we're doing through the rest of the year. And then 11:30, we're going to go deep dive into the AFC East. We will discuss that. End of the show, we will recap with any of the bets that we have from the show. Introducing my co-host, though, for the next few days, Nick Whalen, who I have been booking for guest spots on this network for, I want to say, 7 years, Nick, and we've never done a show together. I'm pumped as hell to be talking football with you this week, my man.
I'm pumped as hell as well, man. This has been in the works for several weeks. A lot of planning has gone into this. Like you said, taking advantage of Gil gallivanting wherever he is around the world. We get to kind of merge two of my favorite shows, prop points and a numbers game. So glad to be here, man. Looking forward to talking plenty of ball with you over these next 5 days.
That's right. And your RotoWire cohort there is Jeff Erickson, also heard co-host on Prop Points here on VSiN. A great show, like you said, Nick. One of my favorite shows to check out with you two, talking ball all day long. A little bit of baseball during the summer, but a lot of football as well. Jeff, thanks for joining. Can't wait to be talking a lot of fantasy with you this week and a lot of NFL. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to get after it here. It is almost training camp time for the real NFL players. We're just getting a little head start on them. Really excited about this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, okay, before we start diving into some specific betting markets, I thought this was a good place to start because I think anybody who is handicapping NFL specifically, but college football this applies to as well. It's especially with the transfer portal coming along here. I think this has shifted timelines a bit of when do you start making bets? When do you really start sinking your teeth into handicapping this season? I think I've gotten a lot of tweets in questions here over the past couple weeks. Hey, what do you think about this week one teaser? What do you think about some of these week one plays? And where I think there is some value in getting ahead of some week one moves and maybe there's even some look ahead lines. We know there's a lot that can happen in training camp. There's injuries that happen. So I think that's going to be one of the best lessons that we can teach throughout the show today and over the next few days of what's good to bet now. Why do you bet stuff now? Why is it better to wait on some things as well? And when do you guys start making fantasy notes? So I wanted to start right there, Nick, with you. I'll toss it over to you first. Just kind of what do you think, what are you doing right now? What do you think is a good idea for bettors and fantasy players to start prepping right now?
Yeah, I mean, we can start with the fantasy side of things. Obviously, that's our bread and butter over at RotoWire. We continue to expand our betting content as well, but fantasy is where we've made our bones over the years. And A lot of expert leagues will start drafting this time of year, if not even earlier. And it's really interesting when you compare the results. If you do a draft in, say, mid-June versus late August, you're going to see completely different results as far as guys rising up the board, guys falling as we get news, as we get injuries, once we get into training camp, once we reach the preseason. I think the more experience you have as a fantasy football player, the more advantages you can find doing early drafts. If you're prepared, if you're studying guys coming out of the draft, if you know everything you need to know this time of year, I think there are certainly advantages to be had. You can identify, certain players who are vastly undervalued. And as more and more people flood into the market, more people start doing drafts, the average draft position, ADP, as we call it, tends to standardize. I think of someone like Isaiah Pacheco, Travis Etienne, one of my favorite fantasy running backs this year, guys like that, we're going at an extreme discount if you were doing early drafts. And, now if you check in on kind of week to week ADP, you'll see players rising. And you're thinking, man, I was getting that guy at pick 102 a couple of weeks ago, and now I got to draft him 2 rounds higher. So there is value to be had, much like the betting market. Sometimes you can get burned, right? Where, something looks great in mid-June, and then, we get an update, and, it turns out the Jaguars actually really like Bashal Tutin, or they really like Tank Bigsby. And then maybe Travis Etienne doesn't look so good by the time we get to training camp. But I think if you do your homework, fantasy betting wise, there are certainly edges that you can get getting into the market early. One thing I would say, Kelley, as far as, if you're betting win totals, if you're looking at these conference odds, division odds, I think it can be really easy to hyper focus on the schedule, to look through and say, oh man, this team has the 3rd easiest schedule on paper in the NFL. And you go through and you start circling games. Oh, that's a win. That's a win. That's a win. Look, it's the NFL. We know injuries are going to set in. We know unpredictable things are going to happen. I think going into last year, the example that I always go back to is if you were looking at the Green Bay Packers or the San Francisco 49ers, you probably weren't circling, that Niners game late in the season and saying, oh, that'll be an easy win for Green Bay because Brandon Allen will be the 49ers starting quarterback. So I think it could be easy to go through a schedule, just circle games and kind of feel like what is going to be definitive, but so much is going to change context-wise as the season goes along.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm going to jump in right there before I hand things over to you because Nick brought up a point that I wanted to kind of lead with, too. I think this is as you're kind of doing a lot of your NFL prep and handicapping for right now. I think it's great for when you're looking at win totals. Now that we know, hey, we have all these in-season markets, win totals, yes, no playoffs. You should look at where those schedules stack up for each team. And maybe there are teams that start off more difficult and a little bit easier. You can kind of make notes on your calendar, on your schedules of, hey, week 5 looks like a good spot that I might want to jump in on an over on a win total instead of playing it preseason with how tough the beginning of that schedule is. So I think making a lot of schedule notes like that right now can be very beneficial. That is something that I am absolutely doing during my prep work here. A couple other things. If you're betting stuff right now, and I have made bets, you're always making bets assuming that you're going to get at least the same number as when we get close to the season or a better number than when it's getting. You're looking for some of those outlier prices that you expect to get shorter and shorter as we get closer to the season. Another thing is just kind of setting up how your season's going to go, right? Make sure that you're signed up at enough sports books that you are comfortable with to be able to shop numbers. Maybe there are different sports books like a DraftKings out there that still offers minus 120 on 6-point teasers when nobody else is doing that. You're going to want to make sure you have all your accounts set up to be ready to go to bet during the football season. This is also about that time of year. Make sure that you're all funded, properly funded. If there's a lot of people like me, you get done with some of your core sports betting, you pull a lot of those funds out, a lot of those funds out of those accounts to do other things with. Now's the time to make sure you've got all the money set and all the number of accounts that you need. Make sure you got your just bankroll ready and know how you're going to manage it throughout the season. If you made money last season, that means that you should be set up to be able to bet a little bit more going forward and hopefully continue to build off of that, bankroll. And then I think this is a great time of year to do this is from a betting standpoint. I think this works for fantasy too. Go back and look what you've done over the years. What have you done right? What have you done wrong? Maybe you're betting road dogs or road favorites really well or something like that. Might be an outlier, but if you look over 4 years and see it, you find that it's a thing that you've done pretty well at, make note of it. These are things that I think you can do during this time of year. Jeff Erickson, how about you? What are you kind of looking at? What would you throw out there for suggestions for bettors and fantasy players?
So one quick fantasy note is don't overplay what happened last year. Don't fight last year's battle. Last year, all these older running backs had great seasons. After years and years of people telling us that, you got to fade running backs after age 28 or something of that nature. Maybe Derrick Henry is just a superhuman. And let's look at that there. He is built different than every other running back that we've ever had. So he may continue to be great even into his low 30s, mid 30s. That happens occasionally, but don't fight last year's battle. I think that it's really important to review what happened last year. And I think you're right about doing that, and especially from a vetting perspective. But you don't want to really chase all your mistakes. Learn what was a fundamental mistake versus, okay, I was wrong about this player. I think it's really important to know that. Learn the fantasy gaming aspect of that there as well. From a betting perspective, I think one of the things you need to look at too is things get more granular the more, and the odds vary a little bit more the more granular you get. So be prepared to shop around when you're looking for individual player props, for instance, there. I think you can find some edges.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's where I think make sure you have the right number of books set up that you feel comfortable with, like Jeff's talking about. Whether we're talking player props, game lines, anything, you want to be able to shop. You want to be able to shop quick and get in on the best of the numbers throughout the entire season. Coming up, guys, we will be on the other side. We will head over to the AFC conference odds, NFC conference odds, Super Bowl conference odds. Take a look at what the VSiN betting guide had to say and what all the experts there weighed in on these different markets and what they saw the outcome being. I thought there were some very, very interesting selections in the NFC, and oh boy, it might be wide open out there. So more to come on Training Camp Today. Myself, Jeff Erickson, Nick Whalen, tons more to get to when we come back on the other side.
What's the guarantee? Eric?
Mike, time to make history. Players in Circa Million make 5 picks against the spread each week with quarterly and full season payouts.
Circa Survivor entries choose one team each week with no point spread. The last one standing wins it all.
We have $21 million on the line. Are you in? Visit circasports.com for details.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah. Came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
Coming up on the next edition of Follow the Money, Stormy and JVT will sit in for us while we're on vacation. It's training camp week at VSiN. And then we'll be breaking down every angle of the NFL and college football. As we gear up for the season, Julian Edlow will join Stormy and JVT to break down the Summer League, NBA futures, and best bets. Follow the Money, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN. The Sports Betting Network, now Sirius XM Channel 158. Check out the website for all the betting tools and analysis, or go and get the VSiN Watch app. Have a good week.
This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp Today on the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back into VSiN Training Camp Today here on the Sports Betting Network. Nick Whalen, Kelley Bydlon, Jeff Erickson here with you, talking all things football for the next hour 45. We got an extra long show coming at you today and through the rest of the week, kind of merging prop points and a numbers game here, talking all football all the time. Get into some conference odds, take an early look at some Super Bowl odds, plenty to be discussed from the VSiN betting guide, a wide variety of picks, especially in the NFC. And folks, if you're serious about winning this football season, the VSiN NFL betting guide is your first real edge, and it's available right now. It's packed with in-depth previews of all 32 teams, season win total breakdowns, best bets from all your favorite VSiN experts, player props, betting projections, everything you need to bet smarter all season long. You can lock in our football special for just $175. You get full VSiN Pro access all the way through the Super Bowl, including every betting guide, daily emails with all the best bets, 24/7 video, all the data, all the tools you can find over at VSiN.com. This early bird pricing expires July 31st. So don't wait. Sign up today. Get your copy of the NFL season betting guide, again, over at VSiN.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. All right, guys. So before we dive in on the fantastic VSiN NFL betting guide, we did get some news in the NFL this morning. Adam Schefter reporting that we have more upheaval, Jeff, in the San Francisco wide receiver room, which has been an ongoing saga all off season. Now Jawan Jennings, who's in the final year of his deal. It is a bargain contract, but Jawan Jennings either wants a new deal or he wants a trade, Jeff. Your reaction?
You know, he's coming off a career year, 77 catches, 975 yards. He's stepping into a more important role. He's supposed to be the stable commodity in this Niners wide receiver room. You're looking at Ricky Pearsall, who's supposed to be taking the next step, but also got hurt in minicamp. You look at Brandon Ayuk coming off of a major injury. Jennings also was limited a little bit with the calf, and it turns out that might have been a sit-in sort of situation there. He's getting paid less than Tutu Atwell right now. I understand where he's coming from. But you know what? You signed that deal too. So it's going to be interesting. We talked a little bit on SiriusXM Fantasy about these contract situations. This is one we didn't anticipate here. I was really kind of excited to be drafting Jennings. Now I'm throwing a little bit of cold water on that.
Yeah, Nick.
49ers up.
I'll tell you, just seeing this deal come down, you guys heard me during the break. It was my first reaction was, didn't he just re-sign a deal or didn't he just sign a deal with the Niners? But as Jeff just said, there is opportunity on the table for him. I think get that money while you can, while you're a wide receiver in the NFL, entering age 27, going to be 28 during the season this year. So, get that money while you can. I'm okay with that. Try to renegotiate before the season.
So again, highly encourage everybody to check out the VSiN NFL betting guide. You'll find everything you need for this NFL season, including everybody's picks for teams to make the playoffs, teams to win the NFC, win the AFC, of course, Super Bowl picks as well. Guys, let's start in the NFC. And I will say, not as many experts in the guide took the 49ers as I would expect. Obviously, the narrative around this Niners team is everything went wrong last season. They have an excellent schedule, big chance to bounce back. Kelley, I know you're looking at a different team in the NFC West to potentially take that conference.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say the NFC West, I think, is going to be the most fun division in football this year. I think that you do, yes, I think there are a lot of pros with the Niners, and I understand the love. You're getting a lot of injuries, a lot of guys that were injured back. We're looking at one of the easiest schedules, no matter how you want to chop it up, in the NFL this year because of where they finished last season. All of that going their way. And I'm a Brock Purdy believer, too. I think that's probably one of the bigger questions with this team. Are you a Brock Purdy believer or not? And I really am on that side of things. It's just, man, I feel like I was a little head on the Cardinals last year. Thought they were being slept on a little bit last year. I think they're probably right where they should be this year, but we're talking 8.5, 9 wins is where we're projecting them to be at from a betting standard. That Rams team in between, though, I think they are going to be pushing the Niners for the top spot. and the NFC West, and could very well make a run deep into the NFC playoffs. Now that they've got Stafford back, Devontae Adams added to that, I think that I know we all love Cooper Kupp. I think that what we saw with him last year, past couple years, between injuries and just a downtick in the production, I think it's fair to expect at his age. I think it's a major boost up with them adding Devontae Adams to this team. With what the offensive weapons that this squad has and what they have on the defensive line and be able to get after in the pass rush, I think watch out for the Rams. They're right there. I think they're going to be on the Niners' heels, if not overtake the Niners to win this division. It is not because it's so tight, Nick, not a bet for me in the division. But, man, Rams are my team in the NFC that I will be looking at hard all season long.
To get the Rams at almost 2-1 right now at DraftKings to win the NFC West, 11-1 to win the conference. Jeff, I know you like the Rams as well, but you're also taking a look at the Green Bay Packers, 10-1 right now to win the NFC.
Yeah, third in DVOA last year, despite Jordan Love playing hurt half the season, despite terrible wide receiver play. I think they addressed that pretty well this offseason in the draft. First and third round picks spent on that position. Very young team, a team on the upswing. I always like to try to find the team that's ready to take that next step. I think the Packers fit that mold. I think a lot of your narrative depends on what you think about Jordan Love and whether he is really, truly one of those elite quarterbacks that is worth the money he's making right now. You look at the running game, I think it's super solid. The play calling is fantastic. I think this is a team that's really tight, really pulled well together. Possible Achilles heel might be the secondary. They didn't have Jair Alexander for half the season last year anyhow, so the fact that they got nothing for him is kind of disturbing, but at the same time, that might be the one thing I'm a little concerned about, but I do like this Packers team. I think Detroit pulls back a little bit. They lost a lot this offseason. I think we'll spend some more time talking about them. The Vikings are breaking in what is essentially a rookie quarterback. So in the division, there's a chance they win the division. And if they get that home field advantage in the playoffs, I really like that 10-1 odds there to win the NFC that you can usually find at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Shop around again because you can find some varying rates here.
I will say, guys, I'm not shocked that our pal Gil picked the Washington Commanders to win the NFC. He's on an island there if you're checking out the 2025 VSiN NFL betting guide. I can see the case for Washington at 9-1. Obviously, a team that far exceeded its win total last year, the surprise team in the NFL. How do we look at Washington at 9-1 versus Philly, the defending champions, at plus 310? The Eagles, by far the most popular pick to win the NFC. That's who I went with. But as we know, we tend to see a ton of variance year over year. Is there a chance, Kelley, that we could see the Washington Commanders pick up where they left off last season, maybe even win that division?
Yeah, I'm going to have similar thoughts when we get to MVP as well. But I think Eagles are really installed at the top for me. I think there's a bunch of question marks then when you go down the line from there. So I think it is not shocking at all to me to see really what all of our experts in the guide had for their NFC champion selection, because I think that's fair. I really think that there are probably 5-6 teams that could be in the mix here. We had a stray Vikings selection, a stray Buccaneers selection. Jeff, it sounds like you and I kind of feel the same way about the Vikings, but I can't completely rule it out. I do think the NFC East, though, still goes through Philadelphia.
Yeah, Jeff, I wanted to get your take on or go ahead.
Go ahead.
I want to get your take on the Commanders. I know you have them as one of your overrated teams in the NFC, and you have some thoughts on the Detroit Lions as well. You and I have gone back and forth on that quite a bit on our show. Obviously, in my opinion, still right there with the Eagles as far as talent goes, but some pretty serious brain drain on that coaching staff, and you do wonder how much of an impact that's going to have in Detroit.
Yeah, they have critical inflection points here. So they lost both coordinators. We remember what happened to the Eagles a couple of years ago when they lost both of their coordinators. You think you've got the next people in place. Johnny Morton might be great as the next play caller here, but you don't quite know. I mean, you're talking about taking away perhaps one of the top 5 play callers in the NFL on a team that was just, super well functioning at that time last year. Take that away. Is it going to work the same way now? You're taking away the center. Frank Ragnow retired surprisingly in June. I think that's a critical inflection point. He makes all those line calls. He's the one that's setting up all the blitz pickups. All pro center, huge guy, road grading guy. You talk about centers, a guy that is mobile and as strong as Ragnow was. It's hard to find that there. You got a rookie right guard as well. I think these are all pretty things that are pretty tricky. You're wondering about some of these injured defensive players. How strong are they going to be when they come back? You're replacing one of your top corners as well. This all could work out. They still have the amazing skill position players. We're still drafting them in fantasy. But I just think that there's enough nagging questions that I think that price is a little inflated for winning the NFC. I think I probably won't be putting any futures on that.
All right, real quick, Kelley, before we head to break, your best value to win the AFC right now.
Oh, man, this is where I want to bring it up to you guys. The AFC, completely different than the NFC, right? Is there really going to be a team that we're talking at the end of the season that is not the Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals, or Bills that wins this conference? I'm just going to throw that out at you guys. Do you believe in anybody else?
It would be the Chargers. For me, that would be the non-Big Three team. I think it's one of those three. The Ravens would be my pick to come out of the AFC, but if it's not one of those three, I'm looking at the LA Chargers right now, 14-1 to win the AFC over at DraftKings. We got to head to break. We'll talk some awards markets when we come back. MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. We'll give you all of our leans there. Keep it right here. You're watching VSiN Training Camp Today.
And they're off.
Gear up for football season the sharp way with a VSiN Pro subscription. Right now, grab our football special for just $175. An early bird deal that gives you full VSiN access through the Super Bowl. That includes our NFL betting guide, loaded with team previews, power ratings, and season-long best bets. Plus, pro picks sent to your inbox daily, betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, live shows on the VSiN Watch app, and so much more. Don't wait. Sign up now at VSiN.com/subscribe and join us on the Sports Betting Network. This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp Today on the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to VSiN's Training Camp Today. Jeff Erickson here with Kelley Bydlon and Nick Whalen, and we're going to talk about individual awards now. We're going to talk about MVP, Offensive Player of the Year. We'll jump into a lot of those, and over the course of the week, we'll get even deeper on some of those. Before we talk a little MVP first, hey, baseball fans, ready for a midsummer bonus? ProfitX is giving you the chance to win 2 tickets to any regular season baseball game. Your choice. Here's how to enter. Just make your first purchase of $100 or more on ProfitX and place at least one pick on any market involving the 2025 Home Run Derby or All-Star Game. That's it. You're in the running. Download and register on ProfitX today for your shot at free baseball tickets. All right, let's talk a little MVP. And before we talk about any individual players, just a quick note. The MVP has really kind of turned into just the best quarterback award. That's why we now have the Offensive Player of the Year as a pivot there. Because you look at Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase last year in the seasons they had, didn't even sniff the MVP. So let's talk about the MVP. Kelley, you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I do have a bet. I'm not sure about you guys, but I have made one MVP bet. But I think this is a really interesting year, and frankly, it might be what we see for years to come. I think for the next couple of years when we talk about the MVP market, it is Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen at the top, plus 550. I don't know if any of us are going to sit here and argue with that. Joe Burrow, plus 650. Patrick Mahomes, 7-1. Jaden Daniels, plus 750. And then you get to 17-1 or longer, starting with Jalen Hurts. I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten to the point where I'm basically penciling in that this is another Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen race down to the end. So again, is this a spot where you could figure out something on the schedule that you think makes sense, maybe to jump in, where they have a rough patch of games, and maybe those odds will drift a little bit more? Sure, maybe. What I decided to do, though, is I made a bet on Matthew Stafford for MVP. We talked about me being high on the Rams earlier. I don't know exactly how I'm going to attack team futures yet with the Rams, but I do think with how stacked that division is, at least in my opinion, I think you need to make some swing high bets on the Rams, and this is one of them. So Stafford MVP, 35-1. I was able to find it 45-1 here in Vegas, but I've seen 40s out there as well. My biggest point with this bet, guys, is okay, if you want to make strong cases for Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to have any pushback. To me, there's a lot of names, though, in between Matthew Stafford and Patrick Mahomes that I can't make really, really great arguments for having that much shorter odds than where Matthew Stafford's at heading into this season. So I rarely make bets like this heading into the year, especially when I think the MVP market is as solidified as it is at the top of the board. But Stafford was my long shot. I'm going to go into the season, probably be my only bet there. And if I get involved later in the season, it will just be as this race crystallizes a little bit more, and I can figure out who I want to jump in on live.
Yeah, I did a panel with Mike Palm's panel for Radio Row at Circa last year, and the great Frank Schwab from Yahoo was on us, and he kind of talked about one angle. It's talking about finding the quarterback on a team that you think is going to be a 1 or 2 seed, and he used that logic towards Jared Goff last year. Now, Nick, I know you've talked about Jared Goff before a little bit. Is he one of the guys you're taking a look at the MVP odds?
Yeah, he is. He is. And he's in that similar range to Matthew Stafford. Stafford 35-1 right now at DK. Jared Goff coming in at 30-1. And first of all, I'm with Kelley here, right? It's hard to imagine this award not going to one of Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. Jaden Daniels at plus 750. That feels a little bit low to me, given how little we've seen of Jaden Daniels, just one NFL season. I will say I think Jalen Hurts at 17-1 is actually a pretty reasonable bet. You know, if you're looking for a team that should be really good again next season, you know, Saquon Barkley likely takes a step back production-wise after an all-time 2024 season. You know, I think last year we kind of saw Barkley and Hurts, you know, steal votes from each other. And, you know, if Barkley does take a step back, if the Eagles are just as good as they were last year, I think some of that recognition could go more toward Jalen Hurts. But again, if you're looking to pick up some value here, I think 30-1 on a quarterback for arguably the most talented team in the NFC. And really, you have to build a narrative, I think, especially when you're looking at a long shot, right? There's not much of a narrative for Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. We just know how good those guys are. They're going to be perennial MVP candidates. For Jared Goff, a series of events have to unfold. And look, if the Detroit Lions can go 14-3 again, or even, 13-4 after losing both coordinators, Ben Johnson got so much credit, and probably rightfully so, for the Lions' success over these last couple of years and for turning Jared Goff into this borderline elite quarterback. I think if the Lions don't miss a step, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but if they don't miss a step next season and Jared Goff puts up similar numbers, they're the 1 or the 2 seed in the NFC, I think that narrative is going to shift. And I think we're going to say, wow, maybe Jared Goff is better than we thought. Maybe Ben Johnson didn't deserve quite as much credit as we gave him last season. So that, to me, would be the argument for Jared Goff. I think you could make a similar case for Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, right? So much of the credit has gone to his coordinators over the last couple of seasons. And again, if Detroit picks up where it left off last season, they run through the division, they run through the NFC, they put up 13, 14 wins, I think people are going to start looking at Goff and they're going to start looking at Campbell when they start doling out credit.
Let's talk Offensive Player of the Year since we've been talking quarterbacks. Let's talk about everybody else that's fighting, doesn't get any like crumbs even for the MVP talk anymore. Let's talk Offensive Player of the Year. Nick, you're making a case for Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, as we know, Offensive Player of the Year has essentially turned into the non-quarterback MVP, and it's been a relatively even split between running backs and wide receivers over the last decade or so. Bijan Robinson jumps out to me at 16-1. I don't want to bet Saquon as the favorite. Plus 650 is reasonable. Plus 950 for Jamar Chase, also reasonable. But I don't like betting on players coming off of what feels like a peak season, particularly running backs. If you look back, 2,000-yard seasons or even guys who've come close to 2,000 yards, there are very, very few examples of players following that up with another historic all-time Offensive Player of the Year type of season. So I'll be fading Saquon Barkley, lightly in terms of fantasy and fading him more in terms of the awards markets. But I think getting 16-1 on Bijan Robinson, who's right there with Saquon Barkley as far as talent at the running back position, I want to look for somebody who has not had their peak season yet. And I think we're entering that kind of territory for Bijan Robinson, who, was picking up about 5 more touches per game over the second half of last season. I think the Atlanta Falcons finally realized that this offense needs to run through him. And I'm just high on this Falcons team overall, high on this Falcons offense. I think, this is a team that won 8 games a year ago. They had some big wins early in the season. They won at Philly. They beat Tampa Bay twice. They lost a pair of overtime games late in the year with Michael Penix. I think we'd be viewing this team a little bit differently had they gotten to 9 or 10 wins last year, which was on the table. This offense was completely hamstrung by Kirk Cousins for most of the year. They basically had to go into a shell and just play not to lose, essentially, because their quarterback couldn't throw the ball more than 15 yards down the field. So part of this, of course, depends on your evaluation of Michael Penix, how good you think he's going to be in his first year as the full-time starter. But I'm in on Penix. I think we're going to see kind of a supercharged version of this Falcons offense led by Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to be seeing season 3 of the quarterback next year with Michael Penix calling the offensive coordinator and saying, just wanted to let you know I'm not playing very well right now. Just want to let you know that's out there. But anyways, Kelley, let's get your take on the Offensive Player of the Year. Do you have a candidate that's your favorite bet right now?
Yeah, I really don't, but I'm going to spin this around the way we started it, because I think we've seen for years now where this has, they're not going to say this, but this has become the award, right, where we're not going to give it to quarterbacks. We're going to try to give it to the position player. Did last year change that thinking at all for you guys going forward with how much love Joe Burrow got down the stretch for this award? Because that's where I'm maybe a little bit more interested in some of these quarterbacks than I have been in years past. So, Jeff, I'll throw that to you. As you're thinking on this, changed it all heading into this year, or would it only be a position player for a bet for you?
I think it would probably be a position player for a bet for me. I think we are in a really unique quarterback era here. I mean, just think about that there. If you're an AFC quarterback, you've got Lamar, you've got Allen, you've got Burrow, you have Mahomes. I mean, just what is Justin Herbert ever going to get a chance to get a real chance at an award? What about CJ Stroud? I mean, it's going to take team excellence. I really think it's going to take something of that nature there where they have to overthrow the big heavies in the AFC for them to really get a real chance at that award. And that's why I think it's probably more of a position player thing. But think about this. Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown in receiving last year. And again, didn't get there. We saw a career year from Cooper Kupp a couple years ago. Didn't get there. You're looking at some pretty crazy outlier seasons, and it's still not even close to the MVP voting. It's really wild there. So no, I think I think this award is basically, that is the consolation prize. And that's why I'm probably going to go that way. I mean, I get it there. And, I'm very Burrow sympathetic, as people know. So, I mean, I would think that is something that I'd look for there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting going forward. Nick, any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, what's interesting is you said there was this upswell of Joe Burrow support, and that is true. But Burrow only ended up getting one first-place vote for Offensive Player of the Year. He only commanded 16% of the total vote share. I mean, Lamar Jackson is actually the quarterback who finished second to Saquon Barkley, but it was a distant second. I mean, Saquon had 34 of 40 first-place votes, had 81% of the overall voting share. So I think there is a case that this could, when you have a really close MVP vote like Lamar versus Josh Allen last year, I think some people might cast their MVP vote for one and they'll cast Offensive Player of the Year for the other. But again, we saw an all-time season from Saquon Barkley. Chances are there's going to be a position player who puts up that kind of year, whether it's a running back or a receiver. So I would not bet on a quarterback for OPOY.
It's training camp time for fantasy as well. That's coming up next here on VSiN.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool deck. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
You're in it now. VSiN's football training camp week is underway all week long. Our experts are breaking down season-long props, futures, fantasy draft strategy, playoff picks, and award predictions. Everything you need to be ready for when the season kicks off. And every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, catch VSiN Training Camp Today, your daily deep dive into sleepers, sharp bets, and expert analysis. This is your camp, your prep, your edge. Only on VSiN, the sports betting network. This is VSiN's Football Training Camp Week, only on the Sports Betting Network. You're tuned in to VSiN Training Camp Today on the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to VSiN Training Camp Today. Myself, Kelley Bydlon, Nick Whalen, Jeff Erickson, coming at you for the next hour and 15 minutes, talking a whole lot of football. But first, football season, it's right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with Best Ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. Right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup for the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another Best Ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 Best Ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million. Get a second ticket to play for free for a share of $15 million. Draft one, get one. Only on DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-3669. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. Once per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th. 25 to get one bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/bestball-ball. Sponsored by DraftKings. There we go. Got all the legalese out of the way. Okay, we're doing a little fantasy segment here. I've got the fantasy experts with me, Nick Whalen and Jeff Erickson. So we wanted to start a little broad today. We're going to get a little bit more detailed as the days go on. We'll get into our positional rankings and stuff like that. Wanted to start with just how we're looking in a PPR league at our top 10 and the top of the board for drafts coming up that I know a lot of people are going to be involved in here over the next few weeks. So I'm going to start with mine, gentlemen, and you guys get to grade me afterward, okay? So number one, wide receiver Jamar Chase. I think that is pretty consistent throughout the fantasy drafting. People out there and everybody looking at Chase number one, expect a lot of receptions, a lot of production there in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. I went Saquon Barkley number two, which I have a feeling my friend Nick Whalen's going to have an issue with. But touchdown machine, we see him become a different running back there in Philadelphia last season. I am wondering if we see even more production out of him in the passing game this year than we saw a season ago. The 3 and 4 were very tough for me, gentlemen. Bijan Robinson, I put 3. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4. I love Bijan Robinson, apparently not as much as Nick Whalen. But I am looking for also, who's the back that's just on a little bit better, more consistent offense? And I don't know if I don't trust this Atlanta offense nearly as much as I trust Philadelphia and Detroit. So I'm going to go Bijan there. I understand we're looking at what the numbers, what he did a season ago, both in the running game and the passing game. It's incredible. I think he absolutely is a top 4 pick, should be. But I'm going to go with him 3, Jahmyr Gibbs 4, Justin Jefferson. It's just year in, year out. You know the production you're going to get with him. Number 5. Number 6, I went CeeDee Lamb. Look, Dak Prescott coming back healthy. He gets some help on the other side of the field this year with George Pickens coming over. I think Jake Ferguson's going to attract a lot of attention as well. I see a lot of targets, a lot of receptions for CeeDee Lamb. Christian McCaffrey, I know we're going to have a little bit longer discussion about this. I jumped him all the way back up to 7. I think if we get a near healthy Christian McCaffrey, he's going to look much like he did a couple years ago. I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit with Puka Nacua. I think he is a highly drafted guy right now. Maybe not the production you've looked for over the past couple years, but I've talked about my love for the Rams, and if I think the Rams are running hot this year, Puka Nacua's got to be a big part. Jonathan Taylor, not quite the pass catcher as some of these other running backs, but consistent production and one of the go-to weapons in that offense this year in Indianapolis. I would go with him, number 9. And then Malik Neighbors coming in at 10. he's going to have the best quarterback he's had play with him during his career. And that's not saying a lot about an aged Russell Wilson there. But I'll put him in at number 10 because I've seen neighbors do better with worse. So, Nick, what did I miss here? What do you hate about my rankings before we get to yours? Bijan.
Well, look, when we're talking about the amount of talent around the NFL right now, it's pretty hard to put together a top 10 that you don't feel great about. I would say your outlier here, Kelley, is Jonathan Taylor. I think he's the guy that you will not see in a ton of top 10s right now, especially if you're talking a full point per reception fantasy football league. He's somebody who tends to go in that middle, even to the end of round 2, if you look at expert league drafts right now. So you're definitely higher than market on Jonathan Taylor. And I understand it. Obviously, if he stays healthy, he has a chance to be a top 5 running back, but do have some concerns, of course, about that Colts offense overall. The quarterback situation feels like it could end up being a disaster. And, Jonathan Taylor has missed significant time in 3 of his last 5 seasons. One of those years, of course, was the contract holdout, but he doesn't necessarily have a fully clean bill of health. So that's the one that I would push back on the most. I'm with you in terms of some of those veteran receivers. You got to get Justin Jefferson in there. You got to get CeeDee Lamb in there. I actually have Lamb just ahead of Jefferson. Now, I think Jefferson is the better player, but we're also talking about a quarterback in Minnesota who has played in 1 preseason game, has never taken a regular season snap. And I think we look at what Sam Darnold was able to do for the Vikings last year, and you just kind of assume, Kevin O'Connell, he's a quarterback whisperer. He'll do the same with J.J. McCarthy. Maybe that's the case. There does seem to be nothing but positive buzz around J.J. McCarthy, but I want to see it first. Like, if I'm picking at number 5 and both Jefferson and Lamb are on the board, I'm going to lean CeeDee Lamb there because I trust a healthy Dak Prescott more than I do J.J. McCarthy sight unseen. And, obviously the addition of George Pickens, maybe that does take some targets away from CeeDee Lamb, but this is the first time in years that CeeDee Lamb has had a true number 2 opposite him, right? You got to go all the way back to his first and second year in the NFL when Amari Cooper was a member of the Cowboys. And I don't think there's going to be too much of a give and take here. I think if anything, defenses having to worry about George Pickens maybe opens things up even more for CeeDee Lamb. Jeff, do you have any critiques for our guy Kelley?
No, I would just say we're talking about neighbors. He's probably quarterback proof. Jonathan Taylor, there's a big demarcation between first half Jonathan Taylor and second half Jonathan Taylor. Taylor was amazing in the fantasy playoffs last year. Now, maybe that was health related. I would say the one drag on his value is he's not that involved in the passing game. Fewer than 20 receptions each of the last 2 years. And let's face it, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, they're not check down artists. They're not really good at finding him in the flat. In fact, sometimes they take Taylor out of the game on third down. Remember that critical game against Houston 2 years ago just to get into the playoffs, how they took Taylor out in the critical play of the game. And that does scare me a little bit that they still haven't figured that out, that he needs to be on the field at all times. But we're picking nits. I mean, this is the thing is we're talking top 10 players. We all like these guys. In fact, our top 5 and 6, they're all the same players. We may shuffle up the order. In fact, if you can choose where you want to draft, sometimes I like drafting 5th. I get my choice of those guys and a better guy coming back in the next round. That's one of the things I like about that there when we're talking about looking at draft position, all that. Let's have the Christian McCaffrey discussion here because I have some trust issues with the Niners. I really don't know if I can trust them to tell me that Christian McCaffrey is going to be okay this year. We were talking earlier about, do you draft early? Do you bet early? Christian McCaffrey missed all the preseason, but all along the Niners like, it's okay. It's just, this is out of abundance of caution that we're holding him out of the preseason. Turns out we find out 2 hours before the Monday night game in week 1 that no, he's really not okay. And he's going to miss time. You could have waited until after the first round of week of games to draft, and you still would have gotten the McCaffrey question wrong. That's the one thing that's holding me back a little bit there on drafting him, but I still put him in my top 10 now because he could be the 1.1 when he's healthy. If Trent Williams is healthy, if this revamped offensive line is working as it should, because the play calling is great. We know McCaffrey's skills are great. It's just a question is how much do we trust here?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Jeff. I look, he's in all of our top 10s, I believe, right? I think he belongs there, but I don't know if I think I had him 7th. I don't know if if I was 7th and on the clock and he popped up, I would 100% sure go with him as opposed to maybe I have 8 right behind him with some of those concerns. I think it's a fair question, and I think it's a lot of what the 49ers season is going to rely upon. I mean, you got to have some of these older stars. They've got to show up and produce for this team. Nick, any quick thoughts on McCaffrey?
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you guys. I have him at number 7, and that it kind of feels like you're splitting the difference, right? And I think everybody is aware of the risk, so you no longer have to take him at the 1-1 or the 1-2 like you did last season. But if you were drafted a month ago, Christian McCaffrey was routinely going in round 2. And I feel like every draft board that I look at now, especially in expert, high money leagues, he's going in round 1. I think people recognize the risk, but they also recognize the upside. And really, you have a choice to make if you're picking, say, 7 or 8 overall. You could go with a safer commodity. You could go with someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson's on the board, Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua, etc. Those guys don't feel like they have the potential to burn you as badly as Christian McCaffrey does. But like Jeff said, if you're hunting for a guy who could be the 1-1, Christian McCaffrey's that guy.
All right, when we come back, we'll dive back into the AFC conference odds. We'll take a little bit of a look at the Super Bowl odds as well, see what our VSiN experts did in the VSiN betting guide. Much more to come on Training Camp Today.
Introducing the $500 trifecta. Use your GBank Visa signature credit card within 3 months of account opening and deposit